Well, we just always think it's important for this show to remain a check on those in power. And all of you know that for the last, 15 years, I've been sounding a populist conservative note on a range of issues, from immigration to trade, other absurdity that we've gotten ourselves into on the global scale, and have frequently pointed out to you how the globalists in the GOP agree with the globalists in the Democrat Party. That's why we had the Clush 2016, what difference does it make, meme going on our show as long as Jeb was in the race. I said, well, why doesn't Jeb just get on the same ticket as Hillary? They basically agree on key issues from trade to immigration, even some foreign policy issues. They're in broad agreement. And globalization for them has been a big friend of the United States, regardless of where it's taken middle America. And I warned you about what would happen if Trump got elected and brought, the foxes into the henhouse. And we're seeing perhaps some signs that that is already underway. Now, what am I talking about? There are a number of people who've been put into key positions of power, both inside the White House and outside the White House, who could have an outsized effect on U.S. domestic policy and U.S. foreign policy. And some of these people, their names you don't know, and there's no need to go over every name right now, but suffice it to say, whether we're talking about the Justice Department or the Treasury Department or the National Security Council or in economic policy in the West Wing, it is up to us to keep the Trump administration honest and close to you, the people who voted for him, the people who supported him. He won by flipping all of these blue states red. All of the Rust Belt went red. States that had been written off by Republicans in years past, or the fool's errand. They were fool's gold. Remember Pennsylvania was fool's gold? That was going to be the Waterloo for Trump. How many times did we hear that? Wisconsin, same deal. And what did I say? I told you, if Trump stayed on these issues that grounded him really strongly in the economic nationalist sentiment, where we focused on America first, we focused on getting business done in this country first, we made sure that we had secure borders, that we had a coherent foreign policy that didn't send us running willy-nilly all over the globe, where we redid these trade deals, where we defunded monstrosities of death like Planned Parenthood, where we repealed and replaced Obamacare in a meaningful way that truly instilled competitiveness back into the healthcare marketplace. All of those issues. Oh, thank you. Prescription drug bidding. And everything that went along with that. Breaking up the monopolies in healthcare. Well, the antitrust protections that some of the healthcare industry and the insurance industry seems to get, well, that can be busted up. Because right now we have monopolist power in healthcare. That has to end. So on all of these issues, I think regular folks said, wow, this is a new way of doing business. He's going to actually do what the people want done. He's going to actually be a politician different from the rest, because the swamp, when you drain the swamp, you don't give power to the swamp monster. You vanquish the swamp monster. And from what I'm hearing, what I understand is happening inside the White House, the very people who gave Donald Trump the right and best advice, Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller and others in that, intellectual framework, that they're having to do battle with people who are either loyal to Hillary Clinton or loyal to George Bush. Now, I'm not saying that those people couldn't have some role or couldn't be useful in some way in the administration. I'm not saying that at all. I mean, voices, yes. Advisory position, perhaps. But how many of you want Goldman Sachs having effect on all of domestic policy in the United States? Interesting pieces. We have to get to this. Interesting pieces. Inside Trump's White House, New York moderates, that means a liberal. If that's the Washington Post, they call a moderates a liberal. I'm going to just change it. New York liberals spark infighting and suspicion. Inside the White House, they are dismissed by their rivals as the Democrats. outspoken, worldly, and polished. I already don't like them. When I hear that, it's like I don't like them. Outspoken, worldly, and polished. This coterie of ascendant Manhattan business figures turned presidential advisors is scrambling the still evolving power centers swirling around President Trump. Led by Gary Cohn and Dina Powell. Dina Powell, George W. Bush administration. Gary Cohn, liberal New Yorker who's donated both to Democrats and Republicans, but gave $275,000 to Democrats over the years. But because he's Goldman Sachs, he sprinkled the money around to the Republicans as well, $250,000. He is a Democrat. He donated to Marco Rubio, but not to Donald Trump. But he's really rich, so I guess that... On the Republican side are the populists driving much of Trump's nationalist agenda and confrontations, led by Bannon, who has grown closer to Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, in part to counter the New Yorkers. Well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So Bannon and Priebus are now as thick as thieves because it's the Republicans versus the Democrats in the White House. What did I tell you at the beginning of all this? I told you, watch the Bushes. We have people shepherding around Neil Gorsuch, which I've learned about over the weekend in this New York Times investigation about how they're running the Gorsuch nomination. And I will reveal more of this in my upcoming book, because this is stuff I don't want to spoil all this. These are people who sat across from me at a dinner table and said the most hateful, horrible things about Donald Trump, who urged certain people never to endorse him, who are now shepherding judicial nominations for the Trump administration. I'm not talking about Leonard Leo, by the way. I'm not talking about him. Now think about that. Why do you want these people within a football field of your judicial selection process? Why would you allow these people in the process? In the fold? Not at all. And don't say, oh, we want a team of rivals. We want to bring in all voices. You want closest to you, the people who saw the light politically, not the people who are going to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic and go back to the old way. You know who's smiling? Jeb Bush is smiling. Low energy now has some power. That's a good line. Low energy now has some power. Send that over to Conradi. Jeb, I'm surprised Jeb's not running. I just hit my microphone off. Sorry. I'm so excited. I'm hitting the table here. I'm like Khrushchev hitting the table. Uh-oh, better not make any Russia statements. They're going to say that I'm part of the whole cabal. We got the Gorsuch hearings going on this week. We got Comey testifying on Capitol Hill. How comfortable are you with a Goldman Sachs Democrat having outsized influence on domestic policy in the White House? On a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you about this? On a scale of 1 to 10, 855-40-LAURA. Trump went on and on about Goldman Sachs in this campaign. Goldman Sachs this, Goldman Sachs that. He went after Ted Cruz on Goldman Sachs. He even went after the CEO of Goldman Sachs. During last year's campaign, Trump portrayed both Ted Cruz and Hillary Clinton as pawns of Goldman Sachs. And he broadened his critique after Steve Bannon came on board. This is from the New Yorker in early February, the New Yorker article. Goldman CEO and Cohn's old boss, Lloyd Blankfein, was depicted as a member of a cabal of global financiers who had, quote, robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities, close quotes. Definitely invite him into the White House. 855-40-LAURA. This is going to get ugly. Y'all thought I wasn't going to hold people accountable? Trump got into power? You don't know me very well. We'll take a break.